Hello, this is Pearl, and today I'm gonna read Little Pilgrim's Progress Chapter 34, Seized by the Giant. The storm passed away before daybreak, and the sun rose in a clear sky and shone brightly over the way of the king. Christian and Hopeful were lying under the shadow of the fence. It did not feel the warmth of the sunbeams. So instead of making their way back to the stile in the early morning, as they had intended to do, they slept soundly and knew nothing of the danger that was close at hand. Giant Despair had heard the storm raging, and he came down from his castle soon after sunrise and walked through his fields and meadows to see if any harm had been done by the wind and rain. Last of all, he crossed Bypath Meadow, and on his way home passed by the very spot where the little pilgrims were sleeping. Hopeful's dress, which had once been white and new, had become soiled and shabby while he stayed in Vanity Fair. But Christian's armor still looked bright, although it was sadly splashed with the mud through which he had walked the night before. The giant caught sight of his shining helmet among the bushes by the fence, and he turned at once to see who was lying there. "They are pilgrims of the king," he said to himself, and he smiled to think that they were in his power. A loud voice roused Christian from his dreams, and when he opened his eyes, he saw the giant stooping over him. Despair was a terrible-looking man, with shaggy hair and beard, and clothes made of the rough skins of wild beasts. Christian cried out with fear when he saw him, and this roused Hopeful, who sprang up trembling. "What are you doing here?" said the giant. "We are pilgrims," answered Christian, whose lips were quivering so that he could scarcely speak, "and we have lost our way." "You have no right to sleep in my meadow," said the giant, and his voice was so harsh and deep that the boys were more frightened by it than they had been by the storm. "I shall take you back with me to my castle." The poor little pilgrims knew that they were quite helpless. If they had tried to run away, this great strong man would have overtaken them in a moment. He drove them before him across the fields to his house, which was called Doubting Castle, and put them into a dark dungeon, locking the door behind him. All night and all day they lay there upon the bare ground, without either food or water, and not even able to see each other. Hopeful crept close to Christian, and they clung together, wondering whether the giant would soon come and put them to death. Christian's heart was very full of grief, because he felt that he had caused all this trouble, and now he feared that the giant would kill them both, and that they would never reach the Celestial City. Giant Despair had a wife, whose name was Diffidence. He told her that he had found two little pilgrims sleeping in his meadow, and that he had brought them home and locked them up in one of his dungeons. Diffidence was very pleased to hear this, and being a cruel woman, she said that she hoped her husband would beat his little prisoners. So in the morning, the giant took his club and went down into the dungeon. When he had beaten the boys, he left them again in the darkness, and they were so bruised by the heavy blows that they could not move but lay upon the ground all that day, moaning with pain. The next day, Despair visited them again, and seemed surprised to find that they were not dead. He told them that he would never let them leave his castle, but that if they did not wish to die for want of food, they might drink some poison that he would leave with them. Then Christian begged him to have mercy upon them and to set them free, and this made the giant so angry that he rushed upon them with his club, and would have killed them, but his strength suddenly failed, and he was obliged to leave them for that item. In the bright weather he often had fits of weakness, and lost the use of his hands, so that sometimes the pilgrims whom he carried into his castle were able to escape from him. Christian did not know this, and he began to think that it was now foolish to hope for deliverance. "What shall we do?" he said. "If we are to stay here until we die, will it not be better to drink this poison than to die slowly for want of food?" "I am sure we must not do that," said Hopeful. "If we are to kill ourselves, the angels would never come to take us to the Celestial City. They only come when the king sends them. Perhaps if the giant is ill again, he may forget to lock the door, and we may be able to slip out before his strength comes back. Let us wait a little longer, and the king may show us a way to escape."